All right, I'm going to try and be polite here when talking about Edgar Berlanga because I'm very tempted to say he's trash. Very, very tempted to say he's trash. But I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'll say he's a work in progress. He's improving. This fight he had against Patrick McCrory on the weekend, he stopped him in 6. He showed patience. He didn't just go steaming in and get himself clipped with something silly. But I'm including this performance in all the other performances I've seen Edgar Berlanga put on, and I've seen a lot of his fights now. And I include it in saying that he's yet to impress me. Remember, he isn't exactly fighting an elite level of opposition. I mean, these are not even solid top 10 guys. Patrick McCrory, Jason Quigley. Before that, he fought Romer Angulo, Steve Rolls, Marcelo Corcerces. God, I always butcher his name. That's the fight where Berlanga was dropped heavily. That's the guy that Billy Joe Saunders, I think, stopped late in a fight when Saunders fought in America. Prior to that, Demond Nicholson. And prior to that was a guy called Ulysses Sierra in 2020. And that was the last guy that Edgar Berlanga stopped or knocked out. It was back in 2020 against Sierra, up until he managed to stop Patrick McCrory. So that was basically 4 years or 3 and a bit years without a knockout, and he's finally got one again. I think it's fair to question his punching power, although for me, I don't question his punching power as much as I question his skills. I think that his skills are primitive. I'm not saying he can't improve, but it's going to take some time. And at 26 years of age, he does have some time. So maybe he can really become a seasoned professional and round out his game. Now, Edgar Berlanga, of course, is an American fighter of Puerto Rican descent, and he's from New York, if I didn't mention that already. New York boxing has lost its way over the past few decades. They don't have the same kind of talent coming out of New York that they used to in decades and even centuries gone by. I remember there was one of Berlanga's fights where Fat Joe, the most famous Puerto Rican American rapper besides Big Pun, came to the ring with Berlanga, and I think he was interviewed, and he almost seemed a little unsure about backing Berlanga. Like he didn't want to be backing a guy that turned out to be a dud. I always am happy to see people come out and support their local talent, but as I said earlier on, to me this is indicative of how little boxing talent there is in New York City right now. If Edgar Berlanga was around in the 1980s, 1970s, even 1990s as a New York boxer, I don't think he'd have anywhere near the amount of support he does now because there were so many other fighters for New Yorkers to choose from and get behind. Anyway, Berlanga's performance against Patrick McCrory, cautious for the first few rounds. Berlanga looked a little frustrated. He actually deliberately elbowed Patrick McCrory at one stage. It wasn't the most vicious, gratuitous elbow I've seen in my life. It was a little nudge with the elbow on the inside. I think he was getting frustrated by McCrory's holding. With that being said, he's apparently bitten someone in a fight before. Berlanga is that type, apparently. When things are not going his way, he'll start to break rules. Definitely have to watch that moving forward. So, manages to start landing big punches in the 5th and 6th rounds, puts his shots together, drops McCrory with a big right hand, and that's all she wrote. There's the possibility that he might actually fight Canelo Alvarez next. That's a fight he wants. And look, I like Berlanga's ambition. If he didn't want to fight Canelo Alvarez, that would be concerning. I like the fact that he thinks he can beat him. But if I'm just looking at the situation objectively as I can, as a boxing fan, I think that Edgar Berlanga would be like a lamb to the slaughter against Canelo Alvarez. I give him very little chance at all. His skills are far too primitive. He does have a good jab. He does have some power there. But I just think defensively, he's horrible. He's a big target. Canelo's going to be able to light him up like a Christmas tree. It's just totally different levels. I mean, even Eddie Hearn isn't talking very positively about Berlanga's chances. You know, Eddie Hearn, of course, is still trying to cozy up to Canelo again. You know, if Canelo Alvarez signs another deal with Matchroom, Berlanga will discover very quickly whose side Eddie Hearn is on. Even though they're both, you know, in that scenario will both be signed to Eddie Hearn, Berlanga would realize, wow, it's almost like there's only one of us signed to Eddie Hearn and it's not me. So we'll see what happens with that, but I would expect Canelo Alvarez to batter Edgar Berlanga. And if Berlanga managed to last the distance, it would be a landslide points victory for Canelo. If not, he'd probably get Berlanga out of there maybe 8 or 9 rounds. So that's how I would see it. But again, Berlanga, 26-year-old guy, Brooklyn, New York, a lot of belief, a lot of ambition. So he's got to go for it. I just think it's too early for him to go for it right now. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.